journalist from The Atlantic apparently was the one that received the text messages. They made them available to the general public, and this is the fallout from it. So we're going to get it. We may get it from a couple different lenses. First, I want to go over to a more liberal platform, right? So we do have it from Fox News if we have the time to get to it, because I don't want to spend any more than 15 minutes on this. If we have the time to get over to the Fox News take, we definitely will, but let's get it from the CNN's perspective to give you the latest update on the text messages and what was released that the journalist was then included on.
CNN's Zach Cohen has new reporting as well for us in this breaking news. What are you learning about what has been?
Somebody said, Anton, you start the show too early. How? And I made it as late as possible. I mean, we practically making it the Millionaire Afternoon show, right? Now, I plan on making it earlier, but if you want to make it difficult, I don't know.
Published when you hear J.D. Vance saying this was oversold by Goldberg.
Yes, Sarah, sources are telling me and our colleague Natasha Bertrand effectively the exact opposite, and that the information that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted in this group chat was highly classified at the time. And that's especially because at that moment, the operation had not even started yet. One of our sources, a U.S. defense official, says that the operational plans that are these are our operational plans that are highly classified in order to protect service members, the ones that were obviously helping carry out the strike that is really laid out in a detailed timeline in these messages posted by The Atlantic today. And look, these are the kind of updates that would be given to the president in a highly classified setting in real time as the operation unfolded. Our sources are really stressing that, of course, this information was as sensitive as it appeared to be. And there's been some hints as to that being the fact, including yesterday, CIA Director John Ratcliffe was asked a hypothetical about whether or not pre-decisional planning deliberations like what's detailed in these messages should be delivered in a classified setting, and he said of course they should. And look, but this is something that Donald Trump himself said yesterday.
It wasn't WhatsApp, for the people that know. I think it was in Signal. I use Signal for all of my text messages too.
Asked that there was no information in these chats or in this chat that was classified. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth actually sort of declined to address a question whether or not he declassified the information that he posted. But we're learning today now that the details and the information that Hegseth specifically posted to this group chat was in fact classified at the time.
I was about to say, how do you determine what's the difference between what's classified and what's unclassified, but you still don't want everybody to know? What's the difference? Somebody in the chat, let me know. What's the difference between classified and unclassified? Now, I'm sure that how sensitive the information is, that's a determining factor. You don't want your enemies to understand exactly what your strategy is, all of that, right? I get it. But how severe or how important does the information have to be to where we determine whether or not it's classified or unclassified? Because unclassified information doesn't necessarily make it to the general public either, right? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you determine if it was or wasn't classified, but it's important either way, and no journalist should have ever got their hands on it? Now, some people in the chat are saying that Pete Hegseth, he's probably the weakest link. Pete Hegseth isn't the person that actually included the journalist inside of the group chat in the first place. Pete Hegseth is the person that's catching all of the blowback from it, but it wasn't even Pete Hegseth that included this journalist inside of this group chat, all right?
Time that he wrote it.
Zach Cohen, thank you so much. We're just getting more information that just came in. Now we're seeing the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, who on the text messages shows that he is the one that added Jeffrey Goldberg apparently into this particular group chat, saying that he now is downplaying the new information contained in the Signal chat that the entire country can now look at. It says no locations, no sources and methods, no war plans, doubling down on the idea that the administration and that this group chat was not about war plans when there was clearly a plan that was spelled out in these text messages.
All right, with us now, Kimberly Dozier, CNN Global Affairs analyst.
To know that the Atlantic actually releases to the general public is crazy. Like, I know these news organizations, they got to do the thing that's going to generate the revenue. They got to keep their ratings up. They got to make sure that they stay significant. This is a gift that probably fell right into the Atlantic's lap, where they get more visibility, they get more readers, they get a whole lot of people that hit their website, all of that stuff. But releasing this information, knowing that it then get in the hands of whoever your enemies are, How do you do that? Like, is that okay? Do you pick and choose when you do it, or as a journalist, you just release it because you like, listen, I got my hands on the information, and all news is good news?
Colonel Cedric Layton, Sabrina Singh, former Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary, Mark Zaid, National Security Attorney. And Mark, I want to start with you because what we are clearly seeing over the last few minutes, based on what we just heard from the National Security Advisor and the Vice President, is sort of wish casting from inside the administration to wish cast this into something that wasn't that big of a deal. Yesterday, you called this a major OPSEC failure, operational security failure. That was before you saw the text messages on Signal. You deal in classified information in your law practice. What do you think now that you've seen the messages?
I can't believe how anyone would think it wasn't classified at the time, which I guess is what they are at least acknowledging. I actually
I
wish
hear you,
that
Connie
Jeffrey
Harris.
Goldberg had given these text messages first to the intelligence committees to examine before putting them out there. But the administration gave him that opening without a doubt by their doubling down on what they say wasn't in there. This was a horrible blunder. The administration is doing, unfortunately, what it generally does, which is attack the messenger, deflect from what the actual issues are rather than just acknowledge you made a big mistake. You had, from what I
think they did acknowledge
good
it, though, didn't they?
operation that should be applauded. But from a security standpoint, this is just another example of how, frankly, incompetent this administration has been in handling national security issues.
All right, we pushing it a little bit far. Mike Walls has admitted to the fact that he did do a little blunder and he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and it probably went a little bit too far and all of this stuff. So we acknowledge that. Everybody acknowledged that it was a fault. Mike Walls actually has been public and taking responsibility for what is going on. And so let's not make this more than what it really is. It is a blunder. I think that it is a bad thing. But let's not try to make it seem like, there's no responsibility being taken just because they, at the same time, are saying, listen, we don't want this type of information to also fall into the hands of wrong people, and we shouldn't have this type of stuff being released. So, and I don't blame them for releasing it either, but, I don't know.
And Sabrina, let me bring you in on this. You, of course, worked in communications at the Pentagon under Lloyd Austin until just a short time ago. The description, the kind of opposing descriptions that we are getting from the reporting, the messages, and the response from Mike Waltz and others on what they see. What do you see?
Yeah, it's pretty clear what's here in those text messages. What we see is a pretty concise TikTok of events. We see the time and locations of where the strikes are going to occur. We even see that Secretary Hegseth put the airframes that were going to be used to conduct those strikes in the text thread. I understand that the Republicans are trying to cover up and parse that, the exact locations aren't given. It is well known where the Houthis control territory within Yemen. The fact that the secretary put this incredibly sensitive, classified, top secret TikTok sequence of events in an unclassified group chat, had that been intercepted by an adversary, that could have killed one of our fighter pilots that were in the air preparing to conduct that strike. And so it's incredibly damaging. I think that this talk that there was nothing classified put in this thread, anything that is before an operation begins, is classified. And that's what needs to be investigated. And frankly, I think we're seeing the gross incompetence, not only of Secretary Hegseth, but others that participated in this chat as well.
Yeah, objectively speaking, I do think that, and I'm pretty sure that Trump was pissed. Like, I'm almost positive that Trump was probably absolutely angry, pissed off that this happened, because it takes away from what he's trying to promote and how he's trying to say and show that the administration is doing the will of the American people and taking care of business. So I'm pretty sure that he was absolutely pissed as a result of this coming out. Let me see if I can get it from Fox's perspective about these text messages and his Signal chat leak, how they're trying to have this conversation. And if it differs anything from, CNN trying to project themselves as being objective reporters. Right
Breaking
now.
news now. We're going to head to the White House where Peter Doocy is standing by as we have this Fox News alert for you. The Atlantic has now just published brand new messages from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and others from that Signal chat group that accidentally included a journalist. Peter Doocy is live at the White House for us. The acknowledgement comes from the reporter that Hegseth, Peter, said that nobody was texting war plans in response to the release of these messages by the journalists. You also had members of the security team in that hearing yesterday saying no classified information was shared in that group, which led the journalist to then publish this piece just moments ago saying, we faced a dilemma then because he said that war plans were indeed exchanged on this text. What are you hearing and what do we learn?
Somebody said, what does this have to do with Trump? What do you mean, what does it have to do with Trump? He's the leader of the free world. You delegate responsibilities, but everything comes back up to the top. Hold on, wait. And again, I promised y'all a couple weeks ago that I was going to be as objective as I possibly can and try to separate what I believe as my opinion as a conservative from just absolutely being straight up and real with y'all. Look. You can't dodge responsibility as a leader. The biggest thing that you can do is take ownership and responsibility of it because you are the person and your administration is the one that appointed the people that are making these decisions on a regular basis. It has everything to do with Trump. Has everything to do with his administration. Has everything to do with his legacy. Has everything to do with, pointing to how he's managing his situation, if he's managing it right, if he put the right people in place, so on and so forth. And so, yes, this absolutely rolls back up to the top. If somebody is a part of my platform and I'm platforming them and I endorse them and I rock with them, and then they go on there and they do some crazy stuff while they're on my platform, that then, I have to deal with that because the question then becomes, wait a minute, did I pick the right person? Did I entrust? Is my judgment what it needs to be? And more importantly, how do I handle it going forward to ensure that it doesn't tank the company and that we're responsible? It always rolls up to the top. Everything rolls up to the top. So realistically, regardless of whether it was his fault or not, he then becomes responsible for what happens because our service members' lives are at risk. We got to make sure that we're doing things the right way. And it is important. It is very important for us to understand the chain of command and leadership. Your girl, let's talk about the leadership within our households. Your children, your girl, everybody that is under you is a representation of you. If your girl is unruly, if your children are unruly, if people are not doing what they're supposed to do, if people are embarrassing you, guess what? As men, we hold you accountable. You hold her accountable. We hold you accountable. You understand what I'm saying? It's your responsibility to get your chick in order because she out here making you look bad. It's our observation and saying, listen, that household is in shambles. Who the leader of the household? Let me go talk to him. It's the reason why parents are held accountable when they children then do stuff. These classroom shooters and stuff like that, they arrest the parents too. They 100% arrest the parents. So we can't skirt responsibility. I'm sure Trump is pissed. I'm sure he pissed. And he like, man, if this ever happened again, some heads is going to roll.
Now.
Well, we have some more of the material that was being discussed on this chat. Pete Hegseth says no war plans, and let's show you what we have, and you can decide if this looks like a war plan. He texted the group at one point. At 2:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. Then at 2:15, strike drones on target, all caps. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based target.
I can see we got a lot of feminine people inside of the chat again that never, don't y'all, we need stronger men. We do. We can hold women accountable, but we need stronger men. No, that's not my fault. That's her fault. No, everything. Listen, how you going to say you want a person to be 100% submissive to you, but then not take responsibility of what happened to them? if they're doing what you say and they following your lead, or you decided to marry them or whatever like that, you become 100% responsible for what goes on inside of your household. What part of that don't y'all understand? See, I don't know if y'all have ever ran companies or ran businesses or been responsible for hiring people and stuff. You know what happens when people don't do what you say? You lose the business. It doesn't matter. When people have a bad experience at a restaurant, they don't say, man, it's that server's fault. They say, I'm never going back to that restaurant. So regardless of how you feel about whose fault it is, the only thing that I want to do is solve for the problem. Am I solving for the problem by making sure that you don't do it again? Do I need to put some policies in place? Do I need to put more structure? Or do I need to fire you and get somebody else that's in the best position? But ultimately, you got to come out and say, you know what? This is my restaurant and it'll never happen again. And then internally, you handle it behind the scenes. It's your responsibility. Nobody goes and say, man, I had a bad experience with that worker. They say those workers are a representation of the business and it is bad experience and I don't like the customer service and I'm not going there nowhere, and I'm giving them 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. The worker leaves and go to another job. You still got 1 star. Does that make sense? Breaking it down from a C student's perspective now, does that register with you guys to where now, okay, listen, I need to be more mindful of who I pick to represent me, who I hire, who I marry, who I'm rocking with, who I'm spending my time with, who I decide to laugh. You have to be very vigilant. We can't mess up. We can't make mistakes. And if we do, we got to own it 100%. Otherwise, you need a partner. You need some other people to make sure you feel good about yourself. You got to take ownership of everything, and you also get the glory. And ain't that tripped out? When you win, hey, this is all me. When you catch an L, you know what? They didn't do what they were supposed to do. No, you take all of the glory and you take all of the L's. Everything comes back to you. Everything comes back it goes up to the top. Complaints go up, not down. Up, not down. Remember that. You get all of the glory, but you also get all of the L's that go along with it. You got to take them both. You got to own everything. Everything.
It goes on to explain F-18 strikes, and then he says more to follow. He says they were currently clean on OPSEC. We know that the Pentagon has more detailed imaging and coordinates than that. And there is no imaging or satellite photos or coordinates or targets listed here specifically. And so it would seem that if you're going to fly F-18s and drones to take out Houthi guys, wherever it is that they're hiding out, the Pentagon has all of that information. So when they say there's no war plans, maybe they just mean that this text image did not include the full package of everything that they knew and everything that they could see and hear on the ground. But there is definitely some details, at least about timing, that is available. But the White House basically, or rather top national security officials basically dared the Atlantic to put this out. They sent Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe to the Hill yesterday to say there was nothing classified in here. Jeffrey Goldberg says that Caroline Leavitt emailed him last night suggesting that they did not want this material out there. But if it's not classified, it's not classified, and the Atlantic decided to go forward. So that's...
Well, yeah, I think that they can't let this type of thing happen again, especially this early into the administration, because if so, then you're going to start to see heads roll. And that's my opinion of it, objectively speaking.